You've set up my on-prem infrastructure. You've showed me what is the best way to run Kubernetes on my vSphere infrastructure. But what I also want to understand is how do I manage at scale? Tanzu wants to be a big multinational organization. I want to run lots of clouds. I want to run on lots of clouds depending on where I am. I want to manage all of these new Kubernetes applications. What can you help me do that at enterprise scale?
I've got the answer for you. This is why we built Tanzu Mission Control. Let's take a look at this from the SRE or DevOps persona perspective. Let's go to the demo. Let's log on to Tanzu Mission Control. What we're seeing here is a list of Kubernetes clusters from multiple clouds that Tanzu has running. We can see there are clusters from vSphere, from AWS, from Google, and Azure as well. In the summary view, we're able to clearly see where these clusters are and be able to monitor the well-being of these clusters. If there are issues, we can troubleshoot and drill down. If we want to create a new cluster, we can simply go to create new cluster and be able to deploy to the cloud of your choice. And if there are existing clusters, you can also attach them to Tanzu Mission Control for centralized management. Similar to Project Pacific, Tanzu Mission Control also takes an application-centric approach. Modern application, as Ray talked about, often running on multiple Kubernetes clusters across multiple clouds for reasons like cost, resiliency, geographical reach. Tanzu uses a namespace as a representation of the application. So let's go ahead and go create a new namespace. When you create a new namespace, you can select a cluster that's relevant for this application and add them to the namespace. Then we'll provide a couple of pieces of information, and the namespace is created. Once the namespace is created, we can go ahead and assign policies, and these policies are propagated throughout all the cluster inside the application, regardless of where the clusters reside. So let's go ahead and create an access control policy for this application. But before we do that, I want to show you what life is like before Tanzu Control if you were trying to do the same thing. So without Tanzu Mission Control, customer would have to go to individual cloud console, then be able to connect to individual clusters within that cloud, and then be able to do a role binding from the users in a role. As you can see, this can get pretty repetitive and time-consuming as well. So let's contrast that with what Tanzu Mission Control can do under the same scenario. With Tanzu Mission Control, we will simply add a role binding to the group of users that you want to have access to this authorization. And that's it. Behind the scenes, what Tanzu Mission Control is doing is propagating the changes to the various clusters, regardless of where they live. With Tanzu Mission Control, this is just a simple example of what Tanzu can do. It can do much more. With Tanzu Mission Control, we're enabling our DevOps to manage fleets of Kubernetes clusters across multiple clouds at enterprise scale.
So thank you, June. What you're describing here between all of these products is this great blending between the enterprise infrastructure, whether it's from vSphere, whether it's on-prem vSphere, all the way into these very modern applications. So at this stage, let me summarize a little bit about what we're seeing with Tanzu Mission Control. So this is a de facto standard for managing these VMs across all of what we're going to see here across multiple clouds. So it's going to be a powerful new product from that point of view, because what you're seeing is examples for vSphere and examples for multi-cloud with a unified Kubernetes management layer across all of those. Thank you, June.
Thank you, Ray.
Thanks.
There you go.